Alright, so for this week's newsletter, I'm going to talk about why we don't snatch. This is a common question we normally have when people walk in the weight room. They kind of see the board as far as for the strength and conditioning classes, we have them test on bench press, back squat, deadlift, hang clean, power clean, and front squat. And the next thing you think you would typically see there would be like a barbell snatch, and why don't you guys test that? And for the short and dirty reason is for Jamel and I, we are aware of elements of a snatch in which we cannot control, that the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze. Probably the most common one that we can see that maybe someone with an untrained eye can't see is posture. Say if you have like kyphotic posture, which just means you have a rounded back because of the desk or desk job or whatever, those sorts of things. Can you gain more thoracic mobility? Yes. Does you gaining more thoracic mobility meets the demand of the actual snatch? No. So just because, yes, you can advance it, well, unless you have like kyphosis, but you can advance your thoracic mobility, but it still not meet the demand of the snatch. And what we don't want to happen is for you to compensate throughout the snatch just to kind of force the weight up there just for what? That's what I said, like the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze with us. And probably the lesser known reason is based on your shoulder structure, what kind of acromion you have, whether you have a flat, it's type 1 curve, type 2, or beaked, it's type 3. Say if you have a type 3 acromion, which obviously you cannot see when a person walks in the door, but if you do, you may try to force, the person may try to force himself in a position in which that's not comfortable for them, and that's going to cause them harm down the road, whether it be external impingement, bursitis, any of those sorts of things, trying to give your best interpretation of the movement that may have been demonstrated based on that. So as far as a triple extension, we stick to our hang clean or our power clean, even if you don't have great wrist mobility, or if you don't have or if you feel like your lats are tight, you can't get your elbows high, even if you have tricep restrictions there as well, it's still less of a risk than reaching our triple extension as we go for overhead snatch to give you long-term problems. So is there an inherent risk with any lift, as simple as back squat or front squat or bench press? Absolutely. But those things we feel like we can mitigate and offset that does not interfere with bony structure. And with the snatch, there are elements of the bony structure in which there's the person that's attempting it, and we cannot work on over time to gain mobility. It's very similar to when we're talking about like squats. Those that go ATG or ass-to-grass, or those that have a hard enough time basically breaking parallel, if we were to count effort at the exact same level, the person that may be going parallel, that's based on a multitude of factors: hip width, the depth in the capsule, the length of their femur, the size of their femoral head. There's a lot of things you're playing into that you can't work on, and that you just have to take into account. So regarding the snatch, we think the same thing, but obviously something like squat, you have those that's going to come in and squat all the way down. Those that may need to squat further down, you kind of judge that as far as effort. And it's just like you can see that in an empty squat and saying, okay, that's where their depth is, and that translates over from there. So as far as the snatch go, that's the reason why we don't.